Okay, moving on to the next segment of today's show. There was a question asked me by another fan, and I decided to go over it. That's basically what we've been doing over the last couple weeks. And his question was, Zach, if you were going to pick 5 coaches that have never won a Super Bowl in their career, that have the best chance of doing it this year, who would they be and why? And I actually thought that was a very interesting question because it prompted me to look up, okay, who are the coaches currently in the National Football League that actually have won a Super Bowl before? And I thought about it, and there are 9 coaches, and they include Andy Reid is 1, Bill Belichick is 2, Mike Tomlin is 3, John Harbaugh is 4, Pete Carroll is 5, Sean Payton is 6, Doug Peterson is 7, Mike McCarthy is 8, and John Gruden is 9. So basically the question is, besides those 9 guys, who has the best chance of winning a Super Bowl? And I picked 5 teams and 5 coaches that really do stand out to me that I wanted to go over with you guys today. And this is in no particular order. I just want to talk about coaching because I also know how important of a factor that always is when it comes to teams winning Super Bowls. So boys, give me some music. And without further ado, here we go. All right. The first coach that I think has never won a Super Bowl that I think has a chance to this year is Bruce Arians. And Bruce Arians is a coach that we have spoken about a lot on this show because he's the coach of the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers this offseason got Tom Brady. They got, Mike Evans. They got Gronk back, Chris Godwin. And I think when I look at this Buccaneer team, do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? Like if I were to pick one team to win a Super Bowl, would it be them? I don't think so. But I think they at least have a shot. I think Tom Brady and what he has around him in Tampa Bay could really work with Godwin and Evans and a defense that's really improving and also an improving offensive line. And I think Bruce Arians is a good enough coach to win a Super Bowl. He's gotten to an NFC Championship game before with the Arizona Cardinals. He's been on a Steeler coaching staff that has made some big-time runs in the postseason before. So I think when I combine that and I combine the fact that he added the best winning quarterback in the history of the National Football League in Tom Brady, along with a supporting cast that is ready to win as well, along with the defense that I think very slowly is starting to improve, and I think that is a unit that could win a decent amount of games as well. I really like what Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could do. Obviously, the NFC South is a very tough division. I think the Saints are obviously a contender. The Atlanta Falcons are a team not many people are talking about that I think could surprise some people, maybe. And Carolina and Matt Rule, I always give him a shot. I like what that organization has done since he's gotten there. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with Tampa Bay. But I think Bruce Arians is a good enough coach to win a Super Bowl, and he's never done that before, so that would be a pretty big accomplishment. All right, moving on to the next coach on my list. How about Sean McDermott in Buffalo? And I'm going to give Sean McDermott credit. He's done a really nice job with this Buffalo Bills team since he's gotten there. I think he's done a really nice job building and establishing a culture. And you see, that team has a lot of fun. And a lot of times there are, just many different players around the league that say, oh, that looks like a fun team. I like the atmosphere they're building in Buffalo. That looks like a fun team to play for. And you guys know, if you've listened to this show, I'm not the biggest supporter of Josh Allen. I think he's fine, but I do question if he can end up leading this Buffalo Bill team to a Super Bowl championship. I also understand that this team went 10-6 last year, should have beaten the Houston Texans in a playoff game, and easily with their defense, their offensive line, and their coach could have made a deep run into the playoffs. I'm curious to see if the same thing happens again for Buffalo this year. Off the bat, when I look at Buffalo, I see like an 8-8, 9-7 type team. Obviously, Singletary's a good young back. They bring in Stephon Diggs, but I just don't know what exactly their ceiling is with Josh Allen as their starting quarterback. I don't know how far exactly he could take him. But the reason why I put them on this list, and I put Sean McDermott as a coach on this list, is because he has just gotten better and better since he's been an NFL coach. When he was in Carolina, he led the Carolina Panthers with Ron Rivera as defensive coordinator to a Super Bowl appearance, and that defense and that team overall was really good and really young. Since he's gotten to Buffalo, he's once again just building and establishing that culture, and if the trajectory continues, the Buffalo Bills will see themselves in a big game sooner rather than later. Moving on to the next coach on this list, let's go to the NFC North, and I want to talk about Matt LaFleur in the Green Bay Packers. And I've made this very well known that when the Green Bay Packers hired Matt LaFleur, I absolutely thought getting rid of Mike McCarthy was the right move. My only thing was I just didn't think Matt LaFleur deserved the job. You didn't see Marcus Mariota ever in Tennessee have that one breakout season that made you say, damn, like we need Matt LaFleur, the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator. He was just a guy that coached under the tree of Sean McVay, and everyone wants that young NFL coach. But what I will also say is this. Matt LaFleur, I don't necessarily know if I trust him still as a legit established NFL head coach, as he's obviously only been good for one season, but the work he did in Green Bay last year was really impressive. People forget that it was only 2 years ago that the Packers were just a bad football team, and that was when Aaron Rodgers was healthy. A lot of it had to do with Mike McCarthy, and obviously we know things didn't really end up working out there the way everyone, would have hopefully expected them to do so. But at the same time, I do think it was nice for the Packers to get a new breath of fresh air in their organization, and their defense was really good last year. Obviously, Mike Pettin was a great hire. I think he's one of the more underrated defensive coordinators in the league just based on what he did in the past with the Cleveland Browns. But at the same time, you have a good defense. You have Aaron Rodgers. You would have hopefully liked to get and bring in some more weapons for Aaron Rodgers in the draft, but nothing you could really do about that now. I think Matt LaFleur, with his quarterback and his defense, isn't that far off from winning a Super Bowl. All right, moving on to the next coach on this list, we will head to a place where a lot of people may be surprised because I actually spent a portion and segment of this show talking about this team a couple weeks ago, and that's the Houston Texans and Bill O'Brien. And I totally understand that Bill O'Brien really isn't a very good general manager, and a lot of people are going to be confused why I even have him and the Houston Texans on this list. There are only two words, and that is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League, and I believe that he's the kind of player that when you have him on your team, you're going to have a chance to win any game. When I look at the Houston Texans and what exactly this organization has done since they lost in the AFC Championship game to the Kansas City Chiefs, things obviously haven't gone well. They traded DeAndre Hopkins. You had that whole Michael Irvin report that dropped. They gave up a second-round pick for Brandon Cooks as they really didn't have any significant draft picks. But what I will say is this. If there was anyone that could overcome all those issues, it's Deshaun Watson. We have seen, even the last couple seasons, the Houston Texans have been a very good team, and he's had DeAndre Hopkins, but it hasn't been perfect. Deshaun Watson gets hit basically more than any other quarterback in the National Football League. I've worried many times in the past that Bill O'Brien is just going to be out here wasting Deshaun Watson. That's how highly I think of this guy and his ability. But the Texans haven't really done a good job building a team around him. And if you put Deshaun Watson in a situation like Dallas, or a situation like Vegas, or a situation like, Philadelphia, like wherever, I just think that team would be much more successful than the way the Houston Texans have been over the last couple years. And I don't know, it's just going to be interesting to see how far Deshaun Watson could really take this Texan team. And then moving on to the final coach on this list has to be Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. And we all know it. Kyle Shanahan easily could have 2 Super Bowl rings right now. And I think out of any coach on this list, I would feel the most comfortable saying he is the closest out of the 4 people I just named. But it's going to be very interesting, similar to the Ravens that I spoke about a little earlier. Like, everything did go right for the San Francisco 49ers last year. And Jimmy Garoppolo, even though I like him, I will admit he didn't really have to do that much in order to lead the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl. It wasn't under his direction. But the 49ers defense is really good, and Kyle Shanahan is still an offensive genius. And I love what exactly he's done to improve and really update and modernize the San Francisco 49ers offense. And the crazy thing about San Francisco is, besides George Kittle, when you look at their offensive and playmaking names on paper, not really that many guys scare you. Like, you have Deebo Samuel, who I like. He's a good young receiver. You have Mostert, who really established himself as one of the better running backs in the National Football League last season. But I just think this team is pretty close, man. Kyle Shanahan's came close before. He's such a creative offensive mind. I trust him as one of the 4 or 5 best coaches in the NFL. And I understand everyone's going to say, oh, Zach, but his play calling in the Super Bowl has been absolutely terrible. And yeah, last year's play calling in the Super Bowl wasn't ideal. But if Pat Mahomes doesn't complete and make that big-time play on 4th down, the San Francisco 49ers are Super Bowl champions. He's such a creative offensive mind. Jimmy Garoppolo had a great season under him. You saw what the Falcon offense looked like before and after he got there. The 49ers are on the cusp of a ring.